Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another Quran study. God willing, today we'll be reading from Surah 50, verse 18. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Not an utterance does he utter without an alert witness. Finally, the inevitable coma of death comes. That is what you try to evade. The horn is blown. This is the promised day. Every soul comes with a herder and a witness. You used to be oblivious to this. We now remove your veil. Today, your vision is as strong as steel. The companion said, "Here is my formidable testimony." And then the footnote says, "Your lifetime companion witnesses everything you do." See Appendix 7. So we have the verse preceding the verses I just read are referring to the two angels that are recording us from the right and left. And God says, whatever we say, they're also recording it on top of everything else that is happening. The angels are also there recording, and then your companions also bearing witness to everything you're doing, being the fact that he's there with you. And then God says, the inevitable coma of death comes, then the horn is blown, which is referring to the day of judgment. And then we will be able to see everything. We'll be able to see the unseen. And that's why it says your vision is as strong as steel. We'll be able to see, all of these things. And the companion will bring also a formidable testimony because he's also witnessing, as I said. Verse 24, throw into Gehenna every stubborn disbeliever, forbidder of charity, aggressor, full of doubt. He set up beside God another God, throw him into severe retribution. His companion said, our Lord, I did not mislead him, he was far astray. He said, do not feud in front of me, I have sufficiently warned you. Nothing can be changed now. I am never unjust towards the people. So on the day of judgment, these people who are disbelievers, their traits include, people who are forbidders of charity, people who are aggressors, and people who are doubtful in this world. So all of these people are those who have set up another God besides God, and they will be in Gehenna on the day of judgment. And then the companion on the day of judgment, tries to clarify or give some sort of an excuse for himself by saying that he did not mislead him, as basically because he wants to not be blamed for misleading this other person. But God says everything's already decided. God is the most just, and both of them will suffer. We understand that. When a person goes to hell, his jinn is also going to hell with him. And then it says, that is the day, verse 30 says, that is the day when we ask hell, have you had enough? It will say, give me more. Paradise will be offered to the righteous readily. This is what is promised to every repenter steadfast. They reverenced the most gracious in their privacy and came wholeheartedly. Enter it in peace. This is the day of eternity. They get everything they wish therein, and we have even more. Right, so these are kind of, scary verses, again, talking about hell. Hell is almost like a creature that talks, and, God asks hell, have you had enough? And it will say, give me more. And then God says, paradise will be offered to the righteous readily. We don't have to wait for it. You're not going to be on a waiting list. Like anything fancy in this world, you have to wait, but it will be there for the believers right away. And this is God's promise. So the verses, here talk about also, one, reminding us of the day of judgment, reminding us about being certain about the hereafter, reminding us about not having doubts, right? But then also, warns against aggressing against people, without justification, and also, being aware of not forbidding charity. There are people that you will come across in this world that first don't like to help others, but that at the same time, they don't want others to help other people either, because there could be many reasons behind that. One, they don't like to see morality and empathy and good things. I mean, probably it also makes them feel bad about themselves, so they want everybody to be just like them. Or simply they just can't understand the emotion or the need behind helping another person. And so there's a lot of people, they're just cruel, mean people, right? And as you can see, I mean, they're aggressors as well, so they're just mean, outright, almost, I would say, like psychopaths, where they don't feel anything for others. And they aggress against people along with, forbidding charity and being full of doubt. Naturally, if they had certainty about the hereafter, they wouldn't be, displaying these traits in the first place. They would be advocating charity and they would not be aggressive. But the people who are in paradise, these are the people that even behind closed doors, even God says when alone in their privacy, they realize that, God is watching them, and, God knows everything that is being done. You have the recording angels that are recording everything, so they reverence God even when alone in their privacy. So, a lot of times, people will show one face, and then when they're alone and nobody's watching, they think that really nobody's watching them, and they think like really there's no recording angels, nothing's, they're not under some sort of a surveillance from God, which we are always, all the time. So we must remember that, right? I mean, if you don't remember that, that means you don't believe in God, you don't believe in what God says in these verses. And that's why people will end up committing sins when nobody else is around. But these people, they believe in God, they reverence God, and they understand that they cannot sin and they cannot, scheme and things like that behind closed doors when they feel that nobody is watching them, because there's obviously the people who don't believe in the hereafter. They only care about what they see. They care about their outer image in front of other people. But when they're not being watched, they'll do the most horrible things, right? And obviously a submitter will never do that. Otherwise, obviously, he's a hypocrite. So the believers are the ones who reverence God even in their privacy. And God says they came wholeheartedly. They weren't people that were like, 50% devoted to God, and then rest of it was just their mixed, bad deeds and just all this other stuff that, they like to do that Satan commands them. They're the ones who submit to God completely, who come to God wholeheartedly. What does that mean? Like, they sincerely submit to God with love and devotion, completely dedicated to God alone, right? It's not, there's no devotion towards any idols, there's no, mixed loyalties. They're loyal first and foremost to God alone. And that's what gets them to paradise. And God says, verse 34, enter in at peace. This is the day of eternity. So they enter in peace. There'll always be peace in their life for eternity. If we can imagine a life that is eternal, that you'll never hear any nonsense even, I mean, not that you'll have to even deal with things, but you never even hear any nonsense, I mean, that's the kind of peace that we are yet to experience, obviously, because in this world you come across nonsense all the time, I mean, you turn on the TV, you look at your phone, you go around, go outside, you see chaos, nonsense all the time, and there's wars and fighting and so many bad things. But in the hereafter, imagine this will be, I mean, so amazing, right? For the lack of a better word, and God says they'll get anything they wish. So, I mean, imagine, like, what can you wish for? Whatever you want, anything. It could be anything, right? Just remember, like, it could be, I don't know, a peanut the size of an airplane, for example. You'll get that even. Just, not that you'll want that, but, I mean, it's like you'll get whatever you want on the day of judgment, and God says we have even more, and God says, like, it will have everything that the hearts can desire and the eyes wish for, things that we don't even know that we want or we would like, but God has those things there for the believers. And the verse 36 says, many a generation before them who were more powerful we annihilated. They searched the land. Did they find an escape? This should be a lesson for everyone who possesses a mind or is able to hear and witness. So God is hinting here that there's many generations that God has annihilated, and these generations were more powerful. And when it says more powerful, that means that, I mean, if you compare it to our times, those generations that God has annihilated already were more powerful than the most powerful generations in this world today. I mean, people think that they have money and power, but really it's not even the same as, like, for example, the people of Pharaoh and how much power they had, right? They could get away with so much, right? Nowadays, people can't get away with the things that they would get away with. And they don't have the kind of wealth and control that these people had. They were so formidable, and they had people working as devoted slaves for them, and they were strong and powerful in that sense as well. But God says He annihilated them, right? So the people today, imagine the people who believe they are powerful and strong, right? That they think that they are invincible, that they have so much money they can do whatever they want with it. They think that the fact that they have this money, it makes them powerful. I mean, yes, to some degree, this money is getting them whatever they want in this world, like women and luxuries, and whatever else. But obviously, it doesn't buy them happiness for a fact, and because happiness comes from God, and it's only coming as a result of worshiping God alone. But then, on the day of judgment, when it's not going to help them. And then certainly, if God's retribution comes for when they're being annihilated, that money is not going to help them, right? And eventually, then they're going to have to answer to God for all their crimes. But, God is saying that these are the people that it's nothing new. I mean, this history will repeat itself. And these people who have constantly challenged God, as we know, are going to be annihilated. It says, we have created the heavens and the earth and everything between them in 6 days, and no fatigue touched us. Therefore be patient in the face of their utterances, and praise and glorify your Lord before sunrise and before sunset. During the night you shall meditate on His name, and after prostrating. Prepare for the day when the caller calls from a place that is near, when they hear the inevitable cry, that is the day you come out. So God is reminding us that He has created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. I mean, can we even wrap our minds around how big the universe is? We really can't. I mean, just think about how big the sun is. I mean, let alone the universe, right? I mean, we can't, because it's even just think about how big the Earth is. You know, when you get out, I mean, just think about it realistically from your viewpoint, right? How big the Earth is. It's huge. But when you compare it to the sun, I mean, it's not even noticeable, barely noticeable. Then you look at it in terms of the solar system, you cannot see it. And, you go around, you look at the, other, systems in the Milky Way, then you look at the billions of other galaxies that are just within our universe, right? And so then the other universes are even bigger than the first universe, and so on. So I mean, this is God who created it, and He says no fatigue even touched God, right? I mean, imagine, I mean, what kind of power we're talking about here, right? What kind of omnipotence we're talking about here. And God says, so nothing is difficult for God. I mean, it's not that God is tired of punishing people, or not punishing people, but giving them whatever they deserve, in the sense of the test that God has given, the reason why we are here. I mean, it continues, right? I mean, it's not like God started the universe as our final chance and then went to sleep, for example, right? I mean, there's no such thing. God is watching us, and we have to be patient too for people that we see in this world that are committing all these crimes, and it seemingly appears that they're getting away with all kinds of things like murders, all kinds of illicit crimes, everything that they're doing. It seems like, for them at least, it seems like they have the money, they can get away with whatever they want. I mean, and the system is not the same for a person who has money versus a person who doesn't. And it seems like there's a lot of injustice, but when we think about it, there's no injustice in this world, and everything is, everything is measured and controlled precisely by God. And whatever we see happening in this world, I mean, God gives these people, enough rope to incriminate themselves, to basically to hang themselves, to allow them to give proof to God about them, about the crimes that they are capable of committing, and how to show to themselves how evil they are, so then they can be punished for whatever crimes that they have done and whatever they deserve. They chose to be with Satan, right? And so this is how it ends for these people eventually. And we're being reminded, how to live our lives, as we go through this process. I mean, a lot of people think that this is making the religion difficult, but they forget the reason why we're here. We're here not for other things, right? We're not here to go to work. I mean, we go to work every day. We work 8 hours a day. We never complain. We never say, oh, well, why is my life so difficult? Like, I have to work 8 hours every day, But when it comes to worshiping God, and you say, well, you have to say Bismillah, or you have to glorify God, like 51% of your day at least, you think about God, and then, people start thinking like this is making religion difficult. So not realizing the fact that, everything that we have that is around us is given to us by God, and God created us to worship Him alone, and especially in this world to worship God freely, with our free will, with all these distractions and everything around us. So that's the whole point, If you I mean, if you come into submission and you feel that this is too much for you, like to glorify God, just remember God, to meditate on His name, to say Bismillah, I mean, really, it doesn't seem like you're going to make it, right? Because really, I mean, we have to realize this test is something that is underestimated by everybody, all these humans that come here, and they fail the test because of this reason, because they think it's meant to be easy and then they're just going to pass. I mean, It's not meant to be easy, of course, because millions of people are going to hell, right? And people are, you know, we're just, our destiny is. I mean, and the idea of going to paradise, is our chances are very slim, right? Let's just say that the odds are really, really, against us. It's we have a very slim chance. The believers are the minority of the minority, right? So the minority of the minority is actually going to make it. So if you think that you can be of the minority and not even have to worship God and glorify God, then you don't understand what submission is, what total devotion and submission to God is, right? Yes, I mean, submission takes away all the nonsense that people have put in the religion, but that doesn't mean that it's a ticket for you to just not be a worshiper. You have to be a worshiper of God. You have to be someone who is devoted to God. You have to be someone who remembers God constantly. And it is difficult, right? Because you have so many other things that are also going on around you at the same time. So many distractions, so many things you have to do on a daily basis. And obviously, if you're not going to keep God in your mind, then you're going to be, I think, again, like swept with the crowd like we did the first time. So because of that, God is telling us here very clearly that we should glorify God as much as possible, praise and glorify your Lord before sunrise and before sunset. When it says before sunrise and before sunset, it's not talking about our salat, right? It's talking about just remembering God, because before sunrise, okay, you can say, well, maybe it's talking about your prayer, right? But what about before sunset, right? And you say, well, it's talking about the afternoon prayer, but it's not. I mean, God can say, do your afternoon prayer, do your contact prayers, and this would serve the purpose. But God says, glorify Him day and night, and praise Him before sunrise, before sunset. During the night, you shall meditate on His name, right? What does that mean? You have to worship God, commemorate Him, commemorate His name, right? So this is not something, when people look at it, I mean, this is something that we do for extra credit, right? But it's something that we must do if we're really serious about making it. We have to make sure that we do all of it. Don't think that, I'm just going to do the minimum and okay, it's just extra credit. I don't really need it. You need all the credit you can get. So let's not be lazy, and let's not be careless and reckless with our lives. I mean, these are the things we have to incorporate in our lives, right? So if we haven't done that already, I mean, this is a reminder for us that we should really, really start doing that, because obviously, this chance that we have is not going to come again. This glorification and remembrance and meditation is something we need in this world. So we should set aside some time in our daily life for these types, for these moments where we glorify God, we meditate on His name, and we have good examples of that. I mean, you can listen to zikr, you can join and sing zikr if you don't have your own, for example, but really you should just meditate on God. You should be able to do it on your own, if you practice a little bit, God willing. And the video from the Night of Destiny, the audio recording from the Messenger of the Covenant, actually, it's a good example, for us, but it's not limited to that. Obviously, you can do more and come up with your own zikr, whatever works for you, right? Whatever helps you. And God has not put a set way for you to do it. You can do it whatever way you want. So, but this really helps grow your soul, because when we think about it, God's messenger, in that same audio I'm referring to, in the Night of Destiny, he says that meditation on God is God's most beloved form of worship, right? So we have to think about it, because the idea behind even just doing your contact prayers, for example, is to remember God, worship Him by remembering His name, right? So every time we do our salat and we remember God in the salat, that's what nourishes our souls. So imagine when you're setting aside some time, like let's say half an hour or 1 hour of your day, God willing, to commemorate God in this way. Imagine how much your soul is going to grow, because you cannot like invent your own salat and keep doing salat for 1 hour, right? But this is something that you can do. For 1 hour, let's say, you could meditate, or 30 minutes or whatever. Obviously, if you haven't done it before, you want to start small and start incrementing it if you want. But, imagine just remembering God over and over for an hour, gives you a lot of strength of your soul, gives you a lot of nourishment for your soul. Like the Messenger of the Covenant talks about the salat being the steak and lobster for your soul, right? Versus snacks, like people say they pray to God all day. But imagine like you're doing that for 1 hour or 2 hours of your day eventually, and imagine how much credit you're going to have stacked up on the Day of Judgment if you continue to maintain that for the rest of your life. Obviously there's going to be times when you can't do it, but people dedicate their time, for example, and someone could say like, again, you're making religion difficult, but I mean, think about what people do for this body, right? People go to the gym, 3-4 times a week at least, right? And they work out for an hour every time they go, or let's say, or 30 minutes even, right? But imagine this is just a garment that we leave here. So what are we doing for our eternal life, our the real soul, the real person, the real you, the real body that needs to be built is our souls, right? It needs to nourish, it needs to grow. We spend at least an hour, or not even an hour, but I would say like 2 hours every day eating, right? Imagine if you put all the meals together and how much time you spend eating each meal. You spend at least 2 hours of your day eating, right? So why can't you put a little bit of time aside for meditation and commemorating God in this way, glorifying God in His name, focusing on Him, right, without any distractions. Verse 43 says, "We are the ones who control life and death. To us is the final destiny. The day will come when the earth cracks in a hurry, giving rise to them. Such summoning is easy for us to do. We are fully aware of everything they utter, while you have no power over them. Therefore remind with this Quran those who reverence my warnings." Surah 51, Drivers of the Wind, Ad-Dhariyat. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. The blowing winds, bearing rain, bringing provisions, distributing them as commanded. What is promised to you will surely come to pass. The day of judgment is inevitable. Despite the perfectly created sky, you continue to dispute the truth. Deviating therefrom are the deviators. Woe to the falsifiers. In their blundering, they are totally heedless. They question the day of judgment. The day they are presented to the fire. Taste the retribution. This is what you used to challenge. The righteous have deserved gardens and springs. They receive their Lord's rewards, for they used to be pious. Rarely did they sleep the whole night. At dawn, they prayed for forgiveness. A portion of their money was set aside for the beggar and the needy. So the title of this chapter, Surah 51, is The Drivers of the Winds, Ad-Dhariyat. And we see that this is referring to the angels who are, tasked with driving the winds. Now we understand that winds are basically, winds will go and places between high pressure and low pressure, from the areas where there's low pressure to the areas, from the areas where there's high pressure to the areas where there's low pressure, right? But how is that pressure created, right? And how does that keep moving, right? I mean, if you try to reason through it scientifically, you cannot explain, like, if it's not like the rotation of the earth that it's rotating, you can say, right? It keeps changing, right? And so God is the one who has tasked the angels to move this around, and it's talking about that. And it says the blowing winds bearing rain, because without the wind itself, right, none of the water is going to go up and condense and go towards lands where it needs to, and shower rain over there. So God is the one who has the angels tasked with this particular thing, as a sign for the believers to think about it, and that is the reason why, for example, you can predict the rotation of the earth because it's very precise in that manner, but you cannot predict, for example, where exactly the rain is going to fall by how much, because it's not like some scientific formula that you could use. So we're reading Surah 51 from the beginning right now. And so God says, deviating therefrom are the deviators. Despite the perfectly created sky, people continue to doubt. So we have the perfectly created sky in front of us, and all these systems that we see flawlessly working in our service by God, right? Still, people continue to doubt. But really, if they sincerely think about how that's even possible, I mean, of course, they should think about it, right? By now, they should realize that it's not something that just is being done automatically, because look at the scientists, like they have searched all across the universe, everywhere they could so far. They haven't found any significant source, any planet where life is the same as here. Otherwise, they would be planning to go there right now and put people on that planet, right? There's nothing there. There's bad winds and storms and all kinds of things. Even if they find some sign that they say is possible, but there's nothing, right? If you go to all the neighboring planets, just let's not go that far. I mean, you can see how miserable things would be. Like if you try to live, let's say, on the moon or on any of the other planets, it's impossible. And God has made life flourish in abundance on this planet, right? I mean, not just one form of life, but so many different forms of life, right? And we're just trying to find one sign of life anywhere. It's not possible, right? Because the conditions that are put in place are by design, that makes it possible in this world only. That's God's plan, and God is the one who's doing it. So thinking about that, thinking about the ideal temperatures based on the angles and the distance and the positioning of everything that God has created in the shapes, God has made life possible. And if people thought about that, and just the fact that how God brings the rains, for example, right? If there is no rain, no water, first of all, life will not exist, right? But also, even if there was water, but there was no rain, that whole system will not work either, right? People who had no access to the water there would die before they could go get the water. But God has made it possible, and the systems that He has put in place. So really, if people think about it, I mean, I used to look at these verses and I wouldn't understand like what that even means, because it's something that we see every day and we never think about it, right? But now when we think about it, you understand how significant that is. I mean, it's a living proof for people. Obviously, even a child would get it, right? But the thing is, if you think about it at the most advanced scientific level too, I mean, it sheds a whole new light on the proofs and the existence of God. Like, just think about all the chemical reactions that take place along this whole process to make these things work, right? I mean, just think about the photosynthesis, I mean, how does that work, right? I mean, who has made it, who has designed that process, right? Imagine if there was a little flaw in that process or something that none of it would work. If you try to change it, it doesn't work. But God is the one who's making it work, and He's made it ideal for it to happen on its own by a source of energy, which is the sun. And then He has put in chlorophyll in all these leaves for them to be able to convert that into food. So these are all God's. These are all God's. Designs that we see in place. This is all God's creation. And so when people think about that, they would really understand. But God says, yet they continue to doubt. They continue to doubt the divine plan. They continue to doubt the existence of God. They're heedless, right? And we can see that. People are not thinking about these things. The average person out there is not thinking about these things. If you stop them and ask them what they're thinking about, they're either thinking about their mortgage or thinking about some plan to get rich or, some other nonsense, right? So nobody is really thinking about God, even though they see these signs every single day around them. And they're so it's rightful to say that they're totally heedless. But God says, the righteous have deserved gardens and springs. They receive their Lord's rewards, for they used to be pious. Rarely did they sleep the whole night, right? So imagine, people love to sleep and rest, but believers, they rarely sleep the whole night because they have to do their contact prayers, they have to do their dawn prayer. Some people have to meditate. Some people are not sleeping in anticipation of the night prayer, or just thinking about the hereafter, So the believers, God says, rarely they sleep the whole night. And also remember, the night starts after sunset. So God says, really did they sleep the whole night, and at dawn they prayed for forgiveness. A portion of their money was set aside for the poor and the needy. Of course, it includes your obligatory charity and other charity that you give, because God says anything in excess you can give to that you don't need. And then God says the earth is full of signs for those who are certain, and also within ourselves. If you think about it, within ourselves, there are so many signs, right? Think about your heart, how it's pumping blood all around, all across different organs in your body, right? The moment it stops, people die, right? So who's making it work, right? God. And so all these signs are there. All our bones that God has created. How they're positioned. If one bone is, slightly twisted, imagine, or out of place. Think about how much pain we are in, right? If we have a little injury. So, or how much discomfort we have, or how we're not able to mobilize and function the way we normally function. And we take all these things for granted. But who has made these things possible? These are all possible by God's design. So all of these are signs that God says within ourselves, these signs, right? We don't have to go very far. Just look inside your body. Just look around. You're not controlling any of this. You don't have any idea how it works. You never went to school to understand how your heart works or how to make it work. Nobody told you, right? But you understand that God is already making it work, even though you haven't programmed your heart or your brain to do things. God is the one who has already done that. The cells in your body, they know what they have to do, right? There's amazing signs of that every single day when we see, every single marvel in how the body works, right? I was just watching the other day on how, in our immune system, the germs and other things that, the body fights, how that works, and how, for example, when a cell dies, how the other cells are there to consume it, and, so many other things, right? And you see an amazing, elaborate design, right? You just look inside the structure of one single cell in your body, how elaborate this is. God has put a complete system of things in between, each cell and all the different components that are there. So these are all God's signs. So verse 22 says, "In the heaven is your provision and everything that is promised to you. By the Lord of the heavens and the earth, this is true as the fact that you speak. Have you noted the history of Abraham's honorable guests? They visited him, saying, 'Peace.' He said, 'Peace to you, strangers.' He asked his family to prepare a fat calf. When he offered it to them, he remarked, 'Do you not eat?' He harbored fear of them. They said, 'Have no fear.' And they gave good news of a knowledgeable son. His wife was astonished, noting her wrinkled face. 'I'm a sterile old woman.' They said, 'Thus said your Lord. He is the most wise, the omniscient.' He said, 'What are you up to, O messengers?' They said, 'We have been dispatched to criminal people. We will shower them with rocks of clay, marked by a Lord for the transgressors.' We then delivered all the believers. We did not find in it except one house of submitters. We set it up as a lesson for those who fear the painful retribution. In Moses there was a sign. We sent him to Pharaoh with manifest proofs, but he turned away in arrogance and said, 'Magician or crazy.'" Okay, so this is referring to Abraham and Lot. I think I'm kind of out of time, so I'm going to try to just quickly summarize. And so we see that this is referring to the people of Lot and how God gave him news of a knowledgeable son, even though his wife was sterile and he was old. But nothing is impossible for God. God says to have anything done. He simply says to it be, and it is. And the angels gave him news of a knowledgeable son, and then also the angels gave him the news that they're on their way to destroy the people of Lot. And God says he then delivered all the believers except one house of submitters, right, which was basically Lot's. And God says he set it up as a lesson for those who fear the painful retribution. So even now you can go and see, the remnants of the valley of Sodom and Gomorrah. You can see those brimstone rocks of sulfur that are there. God set it up as a lesson. We don't know how long it's going to be there, but it's still there, right? You can still go there and even pick up those rocks, and you can test it to see, that there's sulfur there in those rocks. And God set it up as a lesson for them. And then also Moses, the same thing. We see in the story of Moses what happened to them. What happened to the people of Pharaoh. There's a lesson, and God has preserved his body. So all these are signs for us to know that it doesn't matter how powerful you are. If you don't worship God, God has no need of you. You're just people like any other people. You may think you're special, or you may think you're invincible. But, when it comes to God, we're only here for one purpose, which is to devote our lives to God, to show that we're devoted to him and we worship him, out of our own free will, no matter what the circumstances are. And so if you're not doing that, if you're here in this world for any other reason, you're just focused on the wrong thing, right? You're just, being taken for a ride by Satan. And it's not going to end well for you, basically, right? And look at the examples that are there for us. These are the examples. But we can see people are doing the same things now, right? We can see homosexuality, how prevalent it is in today's society, and how, people are asking for retribution right now. You can see how they're, becoming more and more immoral as time goes on, right? They're getting more and more emboldened and going more and more. They're pushing the limits of how bad they can be. If you think it's bad now, just look at it. Maybe a year from now or 2 years from now, it's going to be worse, right? So it's gonna keep going that way until God sends them a sign, a retribution from them. This is and that's just how it has been, right? People have done the same thing in the past, and they have disobeyed God, and they have abused, God's kindness in this manner, and until they got what they deserved, right? And so these are all lessons for us. God says we set it up as a lesson for those who fear the painful retribution. And of course, this is just not even the real retribution. The real retribution is what starts after we die. So, this is just a sign, a hint for people to, reform and, put things in order. So with this, God willing, I'll end. If you guys have any comments or questions, please feel free. Thank you.
MashaAllah, brother, very good study. Good reminder.
Subhanallah. Thank you, brother.
MashaAllah. Thank you, brother.
MashaAllah. I just wanted to add, brother, like, when we are doing these Quran studies, even like we are definitely trying for our souls, we are trying to do the commandments that God has given, right? But in any case, there is this, the time is going on and we have our own lives and we are working. You
Sorry,
can
go
be
ahead.
captured by it.
Sorry, brother. Can you start over again? We couldn't hear. I couldn't hear you. So
Yeah,
people on
brother.
YouTube may not have heard it all. Also.
Okay, so I just wanted to add, brother, like when you were, talking about, reminding us that, we need to work and do the commandments and basically, try not to be so focused on this worldly life, right? So even if we do our best, a daily basis, still there are like so many moments when you forget, you just forget it, and then you're so focused on working with your family or going out or something like that. So that's why these Quran studies are very helpful. That there is continuously a reminder of that we need to think of the hereafter, right? I just wanted to add that because that came up to me when you were talking about it, and I thought, okay, that what we are doing right now is a very good reminder with the brothers and sisters, mashallah.
Yeah, mashallah. Really good reminders, like especially about the zikr. Makes us think, we can be doing more. Like, even if we think we're doing more, if we look at the general population, like in comparison, relatively speaking, like it was mentioned recently or some time ago, we could compare ourselves to like God, like God's messengers and prophets, like because they've set the best examples in the Quran, and through meditation, zikr, because because even just thinking about that, like life is so short, and it's easy sometimes to kind of get caught up in the rut of day to day life, and then still doing all your worship practices, but thinking it from the perspective that you just going above and beyond is really good because that really might just make the difference between someone making it and barely making it or not. If we have that type of perspective, God willing.
Yeah, brother, and like you mentioned something about that it's becoming worse. But I remember that the messenger of the covenant was actually saying that the new generation is basically better than the older generation, and he says the reason is because the new generation mostly they don't just blindly believe what their parents say. Can you incorporate with that? Because I thought
Yes.
it's going. What I thought was since the world is going to accept submission and everything that is happening right now happens because of a reason, right? So in the end, these people are going to believe in submission, and that this generation doesn't blindly believe to their parents is maybe part of that.
Right. So yeah. Okay. So mashallah. Thanks for asking that. So yeah, let me explain what I was saying. Right about that. So what I said about people getting worse. Right. I'm not talking about generations getting worse than the previous generations. I'm talking about people like within one generation. Right. Let's say look at our generation right now. Yes, our generation is rebellious. So, meaning that people are doesn't mean that our generation is very pious, right? It just means our generation is very rebellious, where they're not, following their parents blindly, right? So, in that sense, like they're deciding their own paths, right? So that doesn't mean that there's people that are disbelievers and stuff, and it does. It also means that when people are rebellious, they're doing all kinds of things, like you have all these LGBTQ or whatever, and you have all these non-binary and all this other nonsense that we can't even keep track of anymore. You have people getting married and all this stuff. You have people, going into, different heights of immorality that we haven't even seen before, right? So what I'm saying is that when God says, whenever God decides to annihilate some people, He lets their leaders commit vast corruption, right? And then God annihilates them, right? That's what happens, right? So, and this is what we're seeing now. Like before the smoke hits, you're seeing these people, commit all kinds of corruption. Like you can see, for example, now in Saudi Arabia, for example, like what's happening, right? I mean, first they were doing all this other stuff and they were doing all this hypocrisy behind closed doors. Like now they have all these women, naked women coming on stage and dancing and everything else. It's becoming more public. Imagine, not 10 years from now, but imagine a few years, just a few more years.
Few years, yeah.
It's gonna be worse, right? And and look at it, things in the U.S., for example, right? Let's say in the 50s, you had organized families, morality, less divorces, people being straight couples and everything, right? Not
Less
having all
feminism.
drugs around everywhere and stuff. And now it's just crazy, right? Just broken families, single parents,
Out of control.
out of control, right? And it's getting worse as time goes on. And that's not just happening here; it's happening in other countries too. Like I believe Ireland was the first country that officially created homosexual marriages, and then all the other countries followed. Many countries followed, and so all these other things that are going on in the world right now. So just look at the porn industry itself, like how it just exploded, in the 80s, probably, I'm guessing, or 70s, I don't know. So
Brother, it was the Netherlands that
Netherlands
started the.
and Germany,
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
I heard.
Sorry for that.
Yeah, right.
Inshallah, soon we will fix that, bro.
Right.
We'll be the first one to stop it.
Yeah, so that's what
Inshallah.
I mean, And so that progressively they're getting worse, but the smoke is coming. So when the smoke hits, when the messenger talks about the people are going to believe, people are going to believe. But now people are rebellious in the sense that they, like, you have all these people, they're not following their parents blindly. But that doesn't mean that these people are more pious than the previous generations necessarily, right? They're just
Right.
rebellious.
That's a good clarification.
Yeah, mashallah. Maybe was the messenger like talking about accepting the message? Like if you because I just had something happen like this. So when I talk about the older generation, about 19, Quran alone, God alone, submission, etc., they just they're very easy to ignore. They just ignore quickly. They don't accept it. But when it's like the younger generation, they are like more interested. They just ask questions and they think more logical. Maybe the messenger was talking about that part. Accepting the message.
Yeah, so I mean the thing is
Maybe that's the difference.
when people are young, they're naturally more open-minded too, right? So what you're seeing in general. Like, you know, if you talk to their parents at this age, let's say if you went back in time, they would listen to you too, you know. But as people grow older, you know, their genes become stronger, and naturally, you know, they are harder to convince, right? But children, you know, they're open-minded. Kids are open-minded. They don't have a lot of experiences. They don't have really strong opinions about things in this world, right? Once they grow older, you know, those opinions solidify, and you know, whatever it is, they are hard, you know. They're set in
They're
their
more
ways. You
open
know
to
how
it.
like old people are set in their ways, right? So there's a little bit of element of that also, but nevertheless, the messenger is completely right. Is because, you know, like for example, you see many people that are born in Christian households. They say they're non-religious, or they identify as spiritual, right? That's I'd think like a very large majority of people in the U.S., for example, right now, they have disassociated themselves, and they choose their own religion, right? Or they, even if they're born in families with a religion, they identify themselves as non-religious, right? But still, a lot of people will follow their parents in that sense of identifying with them, but they're still rebellious because they don't go with whatever their parents are doing, right? They set their own paths, right? But that's all it is. They set their own paths, right? But yes, when the smoke hits, everybody's going to believe that submission is going to prevail. But that doesn't even mean that the generations are better than the previous generations in that sense, you know. But what I'm saying is progressively the society, before the retribution hits, right? The smoke hasn't happened yet. So before, what I'm talking about is a completely different phenomenon, right? What I'm talking about is before retribution comes, and you look at these communities that were there, you know, God says we allow their leaders to commit vast corruption therein, right? I'm looking for the verse. It
That's
is,
funny. You just said it because, well, yeah, I'll let you go. Read the
yeah,
words. You
we
just reminded
allow,
me of something.
sorry, vast corruption. So this is in Surah 17, uh, 17 verse 16. It says, if we are to annihilate any community, we let the leaders commit vast corruption therein. Then it says, once they deserve the retribution, we annihilate it completely, right? So then these people, they have their leaders, they commit vast corruption, including political, religious, all these leaders that shape the society, and they do all these things, and they keep getting worse. Once then it's so God allows it to happen until they reach a point where now they deserve it. Now the time is right. You know, it's like you have a fruit, right? A fruit. How does a fruit go bad, right? It just doesn't go bad in one day, right? It starts to get maybe a little mushy and things, and then it starts to grow, and the disease starts to spread, and then at the end it's completely rotten, right? When it's rotten, you throw it out because it's useless. You can't use it anymore. So it's kind of the same thing when people are annihilated as a community, right? Something happens to start off, like for example, the people of Lot, right? We just read about it. So it's not like one day they went to sleep and then they got up in the morning and everybody was homosexual and it was accepted everywhere, right? It didn't start like that. It started small and it started growing, and then first it was taboo, and then it became acceptable and everybody started doing it. The whole town was part of it, and then they got destroyed, right? So in the same way, we see how the societies are now. They get bad, you know, then they start getting worse, then they start getting worse. Then a time come when like it's the prime time for them just to be destroyed now, right? And that's kind of the same thing we are seeing now. I mean, there's many other factors around it as well, right? But this is definitely one of them that, you know, God says they allow them to just commit all this stuff, and you see it progress. It's a progression, right? It's not an overnight thing. So that progression is what I'm talking about. It starts from little, and then it keeps growing, 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 and then yeah, when it reaches its peak, then God annihilates them.
Yeah, mashallah. Thank you, brother, for the explanation.
You're welcome.
Okay, so can we say that since the earth didn't had so many people until now, right? like because the population was not as much as what we had today. And now with the smoke and the asteroid, is it safe to say this is going to be the biggest punishment, retribution, or think that God is delivering to the world?
So can you repeat it, the first part?
Yeah. So since there are so many people in this world, right? Like 8.5 billion. And this is like the highest at the moment, if you compare it to ages before. And since the smoke is going to happen and the asteroid is going to hit, can we say that that which is going to happen is the biggest retribution, or the biggest punishment that God will give to the people?
You're saying the size of retribution is proportional
Yeah.
to the size of the annihilation? I mean, I don't know if, I mean, you can directly formulate that, but I mean, obviously we had the ultimate miracle, right? So God says that in the Quran that even the people about the children of Israel, that even though they did not see 1/10 of the miracle we have given to this generation, how terrible was my retribution, right? And then the footnote says, greater miracles bring greater responsibility.
Oh, yeah, more
Right.
responsible. So and then the punishment is going to be bigger if you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's scary. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the ultimate retribution.
Oh, so we're very happy to at least be witness to the miracle, right? The biggest miracle ever. Okay. And then witnessing like that one too. Okay, mashallah, bro. Thank you.
Yeah. I can't say the same about the smoke, though.
What do you mean?
Like, I can't say we're very happy that we're gonna witness the smoke.
No, like, yeah, like
Right.
I even didn't want to say, like, okay, like witnessing this miracle is like the best thing ever happened to us. But then also witnessing
The
something like that, and then
responsibility.
yeah, like the thing also is, I would say my personal opinion is, knowing that this is going to happen, and even if we knew 100%, we're talking about it, of course, that's going to happen in our time, and we're going to witness it. Like, there is this part of me saying, okay, like I am really doing my best to be a submitter, and to and one of the things that I need to do is I need to put my trust in God. So, and God promises to protect believers. So that also, I don't want to say, of course, like we need to be, we can't say, yeah, we are the best believers, and we spoke about it, of course, we can't say that, but there's definitely a part which says, like, I accepted the message and I put my trust in God, so I believe that He is going to protect the believers, and I hope I am one of those believers that He is going to protect.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting, because the part that where you're saying that you believe that you're doing the best you can.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not confident that I can say
I
that
hope
about
so.
myself.
No, no.
No, I'm not
I
saying what you're
hope.
saying is wrong. I mean, what you're saying is
Yeah.
fine, but I'm just saying that yeah, part of me, and obviously that's just very personal for every person, but like for me, like it's just something that I feel like, am I don't know, like there's so much more I feel like I could be doing or I'm not doing,
Yeah.
that I am concerned.
I of course I get that, brother. Definitely, I have also the same thing, but I always remember the thing that the messenger said, and he gives this example of the dawn prayer. He says that, like, you need to really push yourself to do that, and it's a good yardstick to see if if your soul is grown or not. And the more you do your best, the easier it's going to be, and you're going to enjoy more. So, like, at least I know that we are striving towards that. I'm not saying, of course, like, you know, like there is this, and of course we can do definitely more. We can strive definitely more. But can't, like, is it like we are striving, right? At least a little bit, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is right, you know, but I think that's what I'm saying is like something that I feel that I'm working on, you know, is like, okay, you know, reminding
Yeah,
myself.
all of us, brother. I think all of us are in the same way.
Yeah.
Like, only God, yeah. Who gave that? But John said, only God's servants who are absolutely devoted to Him alone are saved. Noah 75, thus Noah called upon us, and we were the best responders. We saved him and his family from the great disaster. We made his companions the survivors, and we preserved his history for subsequent generations. MashaAllah.
Yeah, so actually, and speaking of Noah, you know, the messenger of the covenant, I believe he also wrote a perspective, is if I'm not mistaken, where he drew that same parallel between Noah and himself, you know, talking about how, you know, just like the people of Noah, you know, people who stand with the messenger are the ones who are going to be saved, you know, and are devoted to God alone the same way. And the people who are not, I mean, they're not gonna be saved, right?
Yeah, mashallah. I didn't know that about that example, that Muslim perspective. Yeah, God willing, I need to read more of those because I don't think I read too much of them.
And of course, there's this part that, you know, we want to be saved, right? We want to be saved.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's in the Quran too, but I think it's normal to, like, when a disaster like that happens. I mean, we're humans and stuff, you know, imploring God and calling out to God for help. Because I don't know if it was in the Quran or I think it's in there, but I was reading. I think it was maybe the book of Joshua, one of the non-canonical parts of the Bible. But I mean, it's just as legitimate. The Vatican just decided to keep it out because it contradicts the idolization of Jesus more, so they didn't go with the agenda. But anyway, it was I read some parts for what it's worth. You know, like Noah was really imploring God, and it was really, you know, it was really a scary time. Basically, you know, it was just what it was referring to. I mean, it's in the Bible too, but you know, I mean, just imagine seeing all that around you and stuff. So. Um, But yeah, may God help us. Because I mean, even people you know, if you talk to today about this stuff, they're not going to believe or not take it seriously. I mean, even it's not like that until something happens, and you know, people revert from their disbelieving ways or their idolatrous ways. But I mean, this should be God willing. I mean, the smoke when it comes, it'll serve as a sign for pretty much the whole world.
And mashallah, brother Abdullah sent the link. I don't know, but this is not off topic, right? What we're talking about?
What are we talking about?
Yeah, like about Noah and no, like
No.
yeah, so yeah, because he sent the link. Because it's not only about Noah, it says here, consequently, we see that it says, if you look at Surah 7, verse 64, they rejected him, Noah. Consequently, we saved him and those who stood by him in the ark, and we drowned those who rejected our revelations, for they were blinded people. And verse 72 says, we then saved Hud and those who stood by mercy from us, we annihilated those who rejected our revelations. And then also with the Salih, you know, so it's like Salih, Lut, Hud, and Noah.
Right. So yeah, mashallah, this is the word I was referring to. Divine proclamation through Gabriel. It says, like the time of Noah, only those who stand with God's messenger will be saved. It says, if you look at Surah 7, verse
Mashallah.
64, it says, they rejected him, Noah, consequently we saved him and those who stood by him in the ark, and we drowned those who rejected our revelations, for they were blinded people. Verse 72 says, we then saved him, Hud, and those who stood by him by mercy from us, and we annihilated those who rejected our revelations and refused to believe. Verse 79 says, consequently, the quake annihilated them, leaving them dead in their homes. He, Saleh, turned away from them, saying, O my people, I have delivered my Lord's message to you and advised you, but you do not like those who advise you. Verse 83 says, consequently, we saved him, Lot, and his people, except his wife. She was with the doomed. Verse 91 to 92 says, the quake annihilated them, leaving them dead in their homes. Those who rejected Shuaib vanished as if they never existed. Those who rejected Shuaib were the losers. Verse 101 says, we narrate to you the history of the doomed communities. Their messengers went to them with clear proofs, but they were not to believe in what they had already rejected. God thus seals the hearts of the disbelievers. And then it says, we see the same lessons in 26:105 through 190. The angel Gabriel has conveyed to me God's plan. Those who refuse to stand by his messenger of the covenant will be utterly destroyed. I was told specifically that it will be like the time of Noah. Only those who stand by God's messenger will be saved. Allahu Akbar says.
Yeah, mashallah, brother. So then, like, the question is, you have 8.5 billion people, but you have also a lot of people who don't know, right?
Obviously.
Are they? Yeah.
Well, there's going to be survivors who will say that, we're believers who leave this retribution,
Yeah. But okay, so like for example, with Noah, Hud, Lut, and the prophets and the messenger God is talking about, can we say that their people, like the people who got who had this retribution, right? Did all of them receive the message? Were there like people who didn't heard about it and still got retribution? And like yeah, so yeah.
So, I mean,
Can we say that?
well, I mean, we know for a fact that God is not unjust, right? So they already, and Brother Abdullah said they already have the Quran, right? So this is the thing, that they already have the Quran. These are the people, these are the real enemies that they rejected it. So and then now, I mean, obviously they're dismissed from God's grace. None of them are going to believe. This is already God's plan. So none of them are believing, right? Not even.
So they're already going to hell.
Yeah,
Definitely,
but I mean,
they're
like,
gonna
think
go to
about it. Like, why is not a single person among the Arabs is believing in submission?
Oh
You
yeah.
know? Not even a single person.
Yeah, the messenger says this. Why is there no any Arab here?
Yeah, that is. Sorry, that is very interesting.
Okay, so like if someone would come and would say, I am an Arab, but I do believe in the messenger of the covenant. So in this way, they could prove it wrong, right? But then they don't. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, but I mean,
You
but
understand what I
also,
mean? Like if someone,
yeah.
because I'm sorry, Suleman. So when the messenger of the covenant was talking about this topic, that none of the Arabs are going to believe, and they were fighting Dr. Rashad, right? They were discussing with him. So like they could hire someone and then tell him, listen, we want you to say that you are a believer and you are, to prove Dr. Rashad wrong. But even that didn't happen. So even they couldn't do even that, And even if they did, it would be a lie, of course, but still, like.
Brother Rafal said God is doing everything. Yeah, I mean, there was one person recently, I think I came across, and he was saying that he was Arab, and he was a submitter, and I told him about this thing about the mixed, thing about the mixed blood, that maybe he wasn't an Arab, and he wasn't convinced, he kept saying, no, I'm Arab, I don't know what happened to him.
Oh, no, but if he has this pride, people like to be Arabs because they think they will be related to Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah, it's like
It's,
deeply.
yeah. Yeah, I had like so many people who were they basically say I am Sayyid, I am Sayyid, I am Sayyid, and
Yeah,
thinking that that makes them better than everyone else.
yeah. But I mean, think about it. Like, how many people have come into submission at least? Not that they are submitters, but how many people have come into submission from different countries like Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, India,
Many, I
everywhere
think.
except the
Yeah,
Arab, peninsula. So
all right, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and probably we would have heard about it maybe, right? Since it's like it would be a unique thing.
Yeah, but
Like the
no, it's
message
not
says, an Arab
happening.
is not going to.
It's not
It will
happening.
not
It's certainly
happen.
not happening within the next few
No, no,
years.
it's not going to happen. Definitely not going to happen because the
Yeah,
messenger said that, right? He said Arabs are not going to believe. So,
yeah,
like anyone who is born Arab is like the
yeah.
unluckiest guy ever.
Hmm.
You already know you're gonna go to hell, and you can't do anything about it
Yeah, like it
because
even makes
your
me
soul
wonder. Like, do
deserves it.
they even have the internet? Do
Hmm.
they ever Google like, anything outside of their own bubble?
Hmm.
So God knows. I mean, they're completely. It's God's. It's you can see clearly. It's God's plan at this point. Like God has completely dismissed them.
Yeah, man. There's even like I don't know if precedence isn't the right word, but if you look into the sorry the Old Testament, I'm not saying the Arabs are cursed, but I mean we have examples at least for what it's worth, just in relevance to what we're talking about, like how wicked people um, get cursed,
Mm-hmm.
like them and their generations and family,
Mm-hmm.
like at the time, I think like the people of who's that king that tried to fight Abraham or something, or Nebuchadnezzar, maybe not
Nimrod.
him, not yeah, Nimrod and stuff, and like there's literally been generations of like specific peoples, not just like scattered peoples, but like groups of people that have been cursed. God curses them.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's similar to that,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense.
Yeah. Also, I think the Quran talks about how the Jews are cursed too, right?
Yeah, exactly too. Because they say I mean, they say the most wicked, horrible thing. Like you can't even fathom the like some of the verses how it says it talks about God's hands, which I mean, God be glorified, but like the audacity of them and the stuff you told me, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I believe you, but it was like mind blowing that there's still people out there or Jewish people that believe that they're going to be partners with God. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, just but
What do they
it's
believe
good.
in?
It's good, but it confirms, verse upon verse, and these things that we've been told, or we're given, real life examples. So in that
Mm-hmm.
sense, it's good to be able
Mm-hmm.
to see.
Yeah, I was so the sorry I kind of misquoted the verse. So I want to read the actual verse. It's 578. It says, "Condemned are those who disbelieved among the children of Israel by the tongue of David and Jesus, the son of Mary. This is because they disobeyed and transgressed."
Yeah, subhanallah. Yeah, they're condemned, right? exactly. I mean, it's almost like condemned is a better word, but Jesus cursed. I think the Pharisees too, like in the Bible, which were all the offspring and Jewish children of Israel.
Yeah. So, Brother Jafar, what were you asking?
Yeah, did John say that Jewish people, they believe that when they die they are going to become gods?
Yeah. This
Brother,
person,
there's
Put it in the
people that
this
verse.
believe
person
that.
on that Discord quote unquote submission server, he told me, he said he was a submitter and he became Jewish, and he knows the miracle
Yeah.
in the Arabic Quran, and then he says God told us that, to the Jews basically that they're gonna become, he's gonna make them partners with God in heaven.
Wow. And is there any verse in the Quran about this belief that they have?
No, he told me that. Why would there be a verse in the Quran?
No. Like maybe like God saying they believe that they're going to be partners, but
I mean, you can
they
almost see from the
like
verses in the Quran, brother, it's almost there. Like, if you put two and two together, I mean, even if you talk to people who are very well educated, like on the Ashkenazis and Bolshevik Jewish bloodlines, I mean, they're both Zionists, right? They're separate factions, but they literally, in their departed, rooted beliefs, they believe that they're going to be made little gods with a little
is it
g
in the
on
is it in their
earth.
scriptures? Is it in
It's
their
in there. Yes,
scriptures?
it's in there. It's in there.
Oh, it's in their scriptures,
Talmudic.
okay.
Yeah, it's in there. Like, I mean, Christian uh, pastors in like the '80s brought this to light. They were censored, but I mean, no, I mean, this is like really what they believe in, as to why they look at every non-Jew so low. But yeah, I don't want to say too much anymore. I don't want to put my verse. But I mean, there's also righteous Jews. I need to clarify, like Messianic Jews. This isn't like some Jew hating thing. Just to clarify, obviously, for anybody to think that, you know,
Just be
Yeah,
careful.
yeah, like
yeah.
in the Quran, God speaks about them
I mean,
saying that.
God tells us, so we can say it too. I mean, Jesus said it. It's in the Bible. It's like everybody in the world is waking up to this, and it's really just bad people, under the name of, but
Yeah, but you have this verse where God says like a group of Jews, they are saying that hellfire is going to burn them like for a few days or like for some time, for a specific time. Like it's not infinitely, right? And then God corrects them. He says like, who told you that? That's why I was asking, like maybe there was also like a verse where God corrects them,
Yeah.
like thinking
I mean,
that they
they
will
even
become
call
gods.
God poor. God be glorified. It was black, but not only do they say his hands, they say God is God is poor while we are rich. Indeed, they are condemned for uttering such a blasphemy. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but I mean, they're mentioned. That's just, I mean, they've been like this too since just like verse Suleman read, Solomon, or by the tongue of David and Jesus, they were condemned and cursed. For their disbelief, because I mean, they get something so powerful. They get to see miracles. They were of Abraham's lineage, which really doesn't mean anything, because if you look at the part where Jesus, they went to Jesus and said, "Oh, we're of our father Abraham," but then he cursed them and he said, "No, you're of your father. You're of the synagogue of Satan. Get before me, get away." So it just shows, I mean, God gives us examples of Noah's family. They couldn't be saved, so it doesn't matter where or what bloodlines you come from, or if you think you're superior just because you're a descendant from this person.
Mashallah, also the messenger of the covenant, in appendix 32 and 33, there's a good example of talking about the Jews and like the bad things they believe.
MashaAllah, yeah, and Rabbi Kushner, I didn't I never actually knew what was said, but I think there was a nice post that was shared the other day on one of the submission groups. I think it was from the Muslim perspective. It was very enlightening. I think Suleman, you might have just made a real good song about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the song because it's a panel. But yeah, I actually I started reading, I couldn't believe like the quotes that Rabbi Kushner was like saying, like, you know, like no no regard or no fear or even like reverence. Yeah, but
Mashallah.
because in the past, you know, we just heard Rashad talk about, but I never actually saw what was said.
Yeah, it's the one that talks about God being imperfect, and will you be able to forgive such an imperfect God?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean,
He wrote a
you
book
never hear
about it.
You don't even hear Christians. Christians will never say that. Like, it's quite the opposite. You know, I mean, you don't hear that with Muslims or Christians. I mean,
Yeah, it's actually an article also that is on Submission WS, posted as an article also. It's called "A Prayer of Thanks to God," and you can see that article in this. He quotes that part from Rabbi Kushner. It's pretty amazing. Like when you read it, like you're like, wow, like that's, and really that's what the messenger is saying. Like, is this a person who knows God? Like he's representing God, you know? So
it's a
yeah, like I'll read it since it was talked about here. So this is okay. So it says, God looked down on planet Earth and saw that the Jews, the majority of them, do not believe his word, the Torah. They do not believe in the hereafter, nor do they know God. Lest you think I'm too hard on the Jews, let me quote a prominent rabbi, Harold Kushner of Boston. In his book entitled When Bad Things Happen to Good People, Rabbi Kushner wrote on page 29, quote, we would be well advised to take this word as seriously as we can, in case it turns out to be the only one we ever have. This world says we would be well advised to take this world as seriously as we can, as in case it turns out to be the only one we ever have, and to look for the meaning and justice here, unquote. So he says, like, we should take this world as seriously as we can because it could be the only world that we ever know. And we should look for the meaning and justice in this world only.
No life after death. Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, and then he says,
yeah, that was from his book.
and then the messenger says, are these the words of one who believes in the hereafter? And then on page 148, Krishna says, I mean, this is blasphemous, right? He says, are you capable of forgiving and loving God even when you have found out that he is not perfect? Can you love to learn and forgive him despite his limitations? Quote unquote. And then the says, is this a religious leader who knows God? And then he says the Christians are not in much better shape. A prominent Christian leader agrees fully with Rabbi Kushner's blasphemy. On the cover of Rabbi Kushner's book, we see an endorsement by Norman Vincent Peale where he describes the blasphemy-ridden book as a book all humanity needs. Quote unquote. A book all humanity needs.
Yeah, like his mind is totally messed up. You can clearly see that. Right?
So
I mean, he's saying God
so
is
twisted.
imperfect. He's saying that this is the only life you're gonna live. You know, so he has no idea. Basically, these rabbis are full of nonsense. I mean, you ask them about that, they'll know. Then they know about God. You know.
That's funny. More movies.
Yeah, you know, I saw one funny clip of Beavis and Butthead. You know, like he goes to Beavis. I think he goes to. I think something happens, and he goes to a rabbi, and he says, you know, he starts talking about Jesus, and he says, no, I'm a rabbi or something, you know, and then he says something about some some movie. Then he talks to him about.
Oh, absolutely.
Then he talks to him about what's that Marvel hero? Iron Man. And he starts telling him everything about Iron Man. You know, his father, who his father was, and what happened in the entire story.
Oh,
Tony
so
Stark.
funny.
Yeah, but really, mashallah, I mean, these verses today were a good reminder for us, about commemorating God, meditating on His name, obviously believing in the hereafter. That's the whole purpose, right? And just brings me back to the same conversation we've had before with people who were saying that suggesting that it could be making the religion difficult if we have to commemorate God a lot, right? But it just shows that, really we don't understand what it means to be a submitter to God alone. Like, you think that, okay, the people out there that are idol worshiping, and doing all these other things that, they have invented a lot of things and they have made the religion difficult, right? But God has given us a purified religion, but that doesn't mean that, you don't have to worship God. Like, you still have to worship God. You still have to be a godly person, a pious person who is going to spend majority of their time commemorating God, as a major part of their life, not just doing the bare minimum requirements. But that's what a lot of these people, they just walk away with this impression, thinking that they just have to do their 5 daily prayers and they can go about, do whatever they want, and they just don't care, right? But obviously we know that that's not the same way, and we see that from the messenger of the covenant too. Like, he was very devoted in that sense, and he was always preaching people to be the same. Like, take it seriously, keep God on your mind all the time, meditate, commemorate.
Writing books, right? Making these videos, and then
Oh yeah.
yeah, very good example, mashallah. But also using the technology that he had, right? Like, if he was still alive, probably he was just like full using AI and the computer, internet, and everything to just promote the thing. And like, even going to these podcasts, right? Like, there's this radio podcast. Remember, he was there talking. So
It
like,
was an actual radio
yeah,
show.
yeah. So we shouldn't we do that too?
Yeah, I mean, we're already doing it.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
have
like
our own radio show,
yeah.
YouTube show.
Mashallah.
Subhanallah.
Yeah, mashallah. Yes, I mean, like,
Yeah, we should do more.
doing it
You
more
should,
aggressively.
but
Yeah.
the thing is, TikTok is a very powerful platform, for people. But I think we don't necessarily have to do it as a group. We can do it as individuals too, but we can also do it as a group too. Yeah, God willing, on TikTok and stuff. TikTok, obviously people have live, discussions and stuff on TikTok, and other people join and stuff. But it's very chaotic too. It's not the same as an organized program, but still, people can put stuff together, God willing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
God
because he
willing.
went there and discussed, was like heated discussion. He did these heated discussions. Yeah, John, you want to say something?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, God willing. I'm trying to Suleman's been saying for a couple months, I'm trying to get my account up to be able to do streams.
Yeah,
I think I can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I
we need
just
a
need
Windows laptop, because it only supports Windows, and I only have Macs.
Yeah, God willing. Yeah, I mean, it's a good, it's good to be able to reach any people anywhere. Yeah, and also the flyers too. Me and Brother Raphael talked about those. God willing.
Yeah,
But
the messenger
yeah.
of the covenant talks about, like, you even go and Invite your neighbors for Quran studies.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was just reading the verse 2 we read today. It says, prepare for the day when the caller calls from a place that is near. So, I mean, it's telling us in a way, if you read it, like I'm reading it, and it's just telling us to be prepared, So, like, if somebody knew a really tough exam was coming, you had a lot of time in a sense, but, the people who are going to prepare and do really as much as possible for the soul, like we've all been talking about today in the study. And reminding each other too, like the Quran says, remind for the reminder benefits the believer. And I think and it's important too, because the believer you can remind people, but the believer is the one actually going to take heed and listen. I mean, it's good to still. It's not to say we shouldn't remind other people who aren't submitters, but in a sense, like the distinguishing factor is like somebody who submits and believes is going to do something with this information, and be steadfast, like.
Yeah, Masha. So I just, yeah, like for example, I went yesterday to the mosque, and they had this area where you can sit, and there was this table and like a screen. And the day before, I was talking about submission 19 and Dr. Rashad and the whole message to two of my nephews, like the children of my brothers. They're young. One is 16, the other one is 18. So basically, me after telling them, giving them the message, they basically said, "Yeah, like we don't have information about the religion. Not a lot of information. We don't know a lot, so we can't answer your questions, or we can't, we can't discuss this with you. But the imam in mosques, he has more information, and probably we should meet." So yesterday I went there, and they had this big room, and they asked him if we could discuss this thing that I told them. So we started discussing the whole situation, and then it became like more people, more children came inside. Basically, they were very young, like they were about 16, 15, 13, even 20. That was the age. And while I was discussing that, one of the things that I thought was like these people, they're doing actually a lot for what they believe in, right? Like the kids are coming there, they are doing this. There were like 20 children were there, like 20 teenagers, basically. And I was thinking that we should do the same, maybe at least for myself. I mean, like I should do the same, maybe hire a place and then start this thing and invite, people, young people there to talk about and give them the message as well.
Yeah, I think that's good. The only thing I would say is like I wouldn't recommend like going to mosques and talking to imams and all this stuff. Like that's just like if you want to do your own thing, that's good. Even if you want to go to conferences and stuff, let's say you should go. But like going to mosques and stuff, I mean, it's just you're
It's not,
gonna it's
yeah,
actually, huh?
it's like, brother, it's like you have the mosque area, but it's like not really a mosque. It's a place where everyone comes, and then in that area there is a masjid where people go and pray. And they have these other rooms where you can do table tennis. You have like a barber, a
Yeah, like it's
place,
like
a
an Islamic
restaurant,
center kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that. And
yeah,
then
but yeah, I mean,
because they,
yeah, personally, just my opinion, but
but I think it
yeah,
helped. The
right.
reason, brother, the reason, I hope it helped. I hope. So the reason is, you know, um, uh, he look after our discussion, their own study started, and I didn't leave there because I wanted to see what he was going to tell these children after our discussion. Like it was basically about the hadith. No, they don't have any proof about that, and he just kept talking about Bilal and how much Bilal loved the Prophet and he died for him, and He basically told all these children how Bilal made Muhammad a god for himself. But in the end, then I started talking with the other kids, and I wanted to ask, like, didn't you make Muhammad a god for Bilal and etc. And then what happened was, like, all the other kids, they could hear these questions that I were asking and the things that I were saying to him, and there were like a few of them. They find it very interesting, and two of them like messaging me, and I sent, like, for example, I sent our application link. They downloaded it. I sent the links to the videos. So that's why I was saying, brother. I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, I mean, I think there's definitely like you can always do that, like there's like for example, people can go to Discord for that reason, like they can say, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go and I want to preach the message, but you can do it anywhere. You can choose wherever you want to do it, right? But that's just not the best place to do it. It just, in my opinion, because this is the place where basically all the agents of Satan are mobilized, and just doing there is probably not the best idea, like do it where, for example, I mean, you're also going to meet with a lot of friction too, right? Naturally, because you're going to go there,
Yeah,
you're going to meet with all
definitely.
the leaders, and there's going to be chaos and stuff. Eventually, let's say you just only went once, right? But imagine if you
You'd probably.
start going every week. At the end of the
No,
day,
it's
they're
not the
gonna.
first time. Yeah,
No, I
it's
know.
not
I'm
the
just
first time.
saying.
Like,
I'm just saying. Let's say you start doing it every week, right? At the end, they're gonna have to kick you out, or maybe issue a fatwa against you or something.
well, I
Yeah,
already
But
did that. I
I was
already
like,
did
you
that,
don't want to
brother.
get a. I was
Yeah,
gonna say
yeah,
it'd be better off going to church because
Ye-
they'll still invite you in. They'll
but
open
it
arms,
already
give you
happened.
yeah,
cookies.
yeah.
You
No,
know,
you should look for your own
it.
platform, Jafar. You know.
Yeah, I get that, but the reason
Yeah.
why I went there is, like, I didn't go there for so long, but the in the times when I just met submission and I became a submitter, God willing, then I went there and I told everyone about it. So they already know me. Like, it's like like my old friends, my family, like so many people, like everyone knows me there. So it's not a place
Okay.
where people don't know me. And
Okay.
then, me
Okay.
giving them the message
Right.
like a
But
few
if you
years
already know
ago.
these people, you don't have to go to that place as more.
No,
There's
no,
more
it was
reasons and
the reason
anyways.
why I went is because my nephews, they asked me if I could meet him, and then they could listen to our discussion, and based on the answers that the imam would give, and I would tell them, that was the reason. And I just
Yeah,
wanted
but
to show them,
you
like,
should
that.
tell your nephews and nieces, if you have questions, ask me here. Like you can ask him later, but the nephews don't have to, like they want to see a live debate. I mean, you can set
Yeah,
up
Right,
debates, online too. I'm
yeah, you're
saying,
right, you're right.
right.
yeah, but it's
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it. Also, the message of the covenant, he gave us good examples. Like if you want to do it, have a Quran study at your place.
Oh, with Ahmed Didat, he
Create a
invited him to
masjid,
his place, right?
huh?
With Ahmed Didat, he didn't go to Ahmed Didat. He invited him and he said, let's have a private discussion, right?
Yeah, yeah, and so we have the same precedent in the sense of, he's talking about, you go to move to a place where there are no believers, you go, you invite those people and neighbors, whatever, to Quran studies, and people will join you. He says, so like you can
When you
even go
start a
to
new thing, they will
conferences and
join you.
stuff, to present God's point of view. You can, but we can do it online, we have more avenues to do it, and but just from past experience, it's not the most efficient thing, is what I'm saying. On top of everything else, because you're just gonna save yourself a lot of headache if you try to, give the message somewhere else where you don't have all these elements of Satan surrounding you, from everywhere,
Yeah, and it's like it's exhausted.
Don't cast your
Yeah, it's
pearls before
exhausting. Yeah,
swine.
it's
Yeah, also
exhausting,
exhausting.
and it discourages other people too, because that's not how you want to. I mean, you picture people getting the message to someone about God. Like it's chaotic.
Yeah, don't
And
cast
you
your
have all
Right.
pearls
these
before
people
swine.
making fun of you and mocking you and stuff, and not letting you speak.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean that, for example, that great debate that the messenger had, that was in a very controlled environment, right? And
Yeah, it says, do not give that which is holy to dogs, and do not throw your pearls before swine or pigs, for they will trample them under their feet and turn and tear you into pieces.
yeah, exactly.
That's from Jesus. In
Yeah,
Matthew.
it's simply barking against the wrong tree. Also,
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was kind of, reminded me of like, I wasn't maybe a usual debate, but like after a certain point, I was showing Suleman and he had made a good point. You know, it's like, well, this person is like, I mean, they're just really not deserving in the sense where they've just completely rejected it. Like my time is better spent on somebody who shows interest or like wants to, like there's actually potential, you know, because there's only so much
yeah,
time we can allocate and stuff, and so you know this person is just
yeah. You know, the thing is,
so bad.
we, yeah, the thing is, we go to mosques and these places because we see people, you know, worshiping and stuff, and you know, we think that okay, because they're worshiping someone, that these people will be closer to getting the message. But you will be surprised that you'll probably have better luck talking to people outside than talking to people in mosques and churches. I mean, nevertheless, people will come from mosques and churches and synagogues, as we know, right? But there's a reason why we're not supposed to go to those places in the first place. Like, yeah, I mean, you can say you can go there, but you don't pray there. But that's the whole point, you know. God says never pray in such a masjid. It's not that you know, by you praying in that masjid is wrong, but because those are basically centers of Satan, right? Masjids of Satan, those are centers of Satan. So why would you want to go and preach inside a center of Satan? Like, you rather go preach somewhere else. God's earth is spacious anyways, right? There's so many platforms. Like, for example, one can go to Times Square and start preaching there, you know, because there's people. You know, you just need people. You don't need religious people to give them the message. You can give it to anybody, right? So, I mean, I'm not saying there's Times Square, Netherlands, but you know, whatever you have.
Maybe brother Joffrey can open his own mosque or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, inshallah, brother. Like we
Yeah,
want to
inshallah.
do
I'll come
pray
visit.
the Friday prayer, inshallah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You know,
Yeah.
like being there and seeing all these children, these young kids, not knowing, like because you know I grew up in the same environment, the same place, the same people. Like I know how it is to be there, and then looking at my own when I was younger. You know, I remember talking with all the imams
Yeah.
and
You can go to
so many
schools.
people.
Go to schools. Be a chaplain, for example. I don't know if they have those in
Yeah,
Europe.
basically, brother, the reason why I went is because they asked me to discuss with the imam because they
No, I
didn't
know.
have
I
enough
know.
information. So I thought
Right. Right.
maybe, you know, okay, I can also discuss with someone who
Right.
thinks that he knows and he didn't. Like these people, they actually don't know
Right.
nothing.
Right.
Like
I
if
mean,
you,
it's probably
yeah,
somebody, you know, who was looking for a job overseas, you know, and he memorized the Quran, and you know, he came from another
no,
country,
not even,
got a
not even.
job.
They don't know the Quran, brother.
No, just they just know the Arabic, you know.
Yeah, yeah, right, yeah,
Yeah.
right. Like
And they teach
until
kids
today.
Arabic and they get money for it, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And until today, brother, everyone that I had a discussion with, even with my grandfather, he was like a big imam. He came to Europe to so many, he went to so many mosques to preach and in Turkey. And you know, he's like someone whom you would think had a lot of knowledge. But you know, I had these discussions with him, and like when I was discussing with him, I saw that this guy he didn't know nothing about the Quran. He
Because they have no
was like
access.
yeah, like I was very surprised. Like all these verses that I was reading to him, and he was looking at me like, "What are you talking about? Like, is that a verse from the Quran?" And things that he was saying, the things thinking that those what he was saying were verses from the Quran. And I reminded him. I said, like, where do you get all these things? It's not in the Quran. And he was like saying, no, it's in the Quran. I said, no, impossible. These are not verses from the Quran. He believes like in all these things as if they were verses of the Quran. And most of them are like that. So yeah. But I get the point, brother. And mashallah, like before I went to the mosques much more, because like all my friends, my family members, like so many people are going there, seeing them. Even like in the beginning, like the first moments were to, of course, spread the message, to tell them about it. Then it was more, to have this social connect. But after I learned that we need to, we shouldn't go there, then I stopped going there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mashallah. Yeah, we should avoid those places because God says,
And I remember asking you, brother, we had the same discussion in the Turkish group. We were reading the verse where God says that we shouldn't pray. It's prohibited to pray in these mosques. And then I was telling my brothers, like, okay, God is saying we shouldn't pray in there, so we shouldn't even go there. And I asked you the same question actually, and then you said like the verse doesn't say we cannot go there, we
Yeah, I
shouldn't
mean,
pray
going
there.
there in the sense that let's say, like when I went to Turkey, like I wanted to see the big mosque just for like the architecture and
Maybe,
stuff
yeah.
and historical purpose.
Okay.
I had no interest,
Makes sense.
in going preaching to people.
Yeah, it makes sense. I can look at the walls and
Yeah.
the ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, let's say like if you want to go do your ablution, and there's a mosque there, you can go do your ablution and come out,
Yeah. Masha, that was a part of the question because, brother, until I learned that we could do our ablution in the mosques, I had so many opportunities where I was outside, I needed to do my ablution,
Yeah.
but then I couldn't do that, so I did it outside.
Yeah.
And I knew there were mosques nearby, so
Yeah. I ended up
but
doing my
then
ablutions
it's
and
helpful.
prayers like right outside the mosque in Turkey.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Every time it was time for prayer and I need to do my salat, and I found myself right next to a mosque and people looking at me
Yeah.
like there's something wrong with me.
Yeah. That's really funny. They said, why don't you go inside?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. But you have so many mosques in Turkey, like everywhere. Everywhere.
They all look similar too.
Yeah. And empty, actually.
Yeah, empty.
Very empty.
Yeah.
Very empty, brother. Very empty.
Yeah.
Like in our village in Turkey, there are so many people living in the Netherlands who are from that village, and they work here, and like everyone has money. So they built this huge mosque there, like huge. You would think it's like for the big city, but then and no one goes there. It's like one or two guys, like so less and very empty. Yeah.
Yeah. I think after the smoke, these masjids will be dedicated to God alone, rededicated to God alone.
Inshallah.
So, Brother Abdullah is asking, is next week my turn or John's turn? What does it say in the... Oh.
I think it's God willing. I think it's Brother Abdullah's turn because I looked, and then I saw. Well, wait, hang on, I could be wrong.
Let me check.
I think I'm December 30th. Oh, December 30th.
So, if we look at the
Yes,
schedule
Abdullah.
for next week, you mean on Saturday, right?
Saturday.
Yeah, it's Brother Abdullah, it's your turn. December 7th. All right, so are there any off-topic questions we want to talk about? Anything we missed? All right, so thank you all for joining us. God willing, our next Quran study in English will be on Tuesday, God willing, at 2 p.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks,
God
Amir.
bless
Thank
you
you for
all.
the study.
Thank you,
MashaAllah.
mashallah.
MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum.